One of the models we use when we're training mediators or principled negotiators, but also when we're working directly with people who are finding themselves struggling with a conflict, is a conflict styles model that helps them notice which style they are using and which style the other person in the conflict maybe is going for. Sometimes we'll give people a chance to fill in a questionnaire that helps them see which their top style is in this particular dynamic, because we'll vary on which style we use, and also which is their least favoured style. These styles, it's not that there is a best style. Each of these styles is like a tool in your toolbox. So I'm going to talk you through the model, and as I do, it may be worth noticing which of these styles shows up for you in which setting. When do you find yourself doing this? So the first style I want to notice with you would be compel. So when we're using a compel style, we're seeking to control the outcome, and we're particularly using it maybe because the issue really matters to us, or maybe there's an emergency, there's very little time, and there just needs to be a clear decision. Perhaps it's the job we're in. We're expected to be decisive and uphold policy, and so we are holding people to a particular standard. So all of those could show up as forms of the compel style. Compel isn't necessarily an aggressive thing. It can just be good, clear decision making. But it's certainly a style in which, when I'm using compel, I am seeking to control the outcome, and I'm maybe primarily driven by a desire to meet my own needs in that moment. For example, on the way back from a recent trip to Donegal, when there was a discussion between myself and my partner about who was going to drive home, I settled the question by climbing into the driver's seat of the car. So I'm driving because I'm in the driver's seat. So that's where the issue mattered to me. And in some way, maybe I was allowing a potential cost to the relationship. How happy was my partner at this state of affairs? He is given the possibility of demonstrating one of the other conflict styles, which is to accommodate. In this case, accommodating looks like climbing into the passenger seat and saying, fair enough, looks like you want to drive home today then. When we're using accommodate, we're really prioritising relationship. We're giving way on issue, and we want the other person to have their needs met. We want them to be satisfied. Actually, that might also meet our need as well, because our need might be hoping for the other to be content and for our relationship to be comfortable together. Of course, if I'm always using compel, that will feel like domineering and controlling, and may do actually lasting harm to my relationship with other people. But if I'm always using an accommodate style, that will also be damaging. Maybe I'm using it and giving way on something where actually I find it hard to live with the consequences of that. I've given way on an issue that actually really mattered to me. Or I'm always giving way and I begin to feel like I'm just treated like a bit of a doormat, like my voice is not heard anymore. Each of these has a healthy expression, a moment when it's really useful to use it. But if they're overused or used at the wrong moment, then we really start to experience the downside. Of course, between compel and accommodate, we might look at compromise, kind of meeting in the middle. We'll not compromise by simultaneously trying to both drive the car, but we could compromise whereby I drive it halfway and at the rest point we swap over. That might be a nice compromise. So 50-50, split the difference, kind of meet in the middle somewhere. You also have a fourth style, which goes in the bottom left-hand corner here, withdraw or avoid. We might be using that style when actually the issue and the relationship are not hugely important to us. So why would we even get into it? Kind of avoiding a conflict, withdrawing from it, because it's really not worth it on that kind of cost-benefit analysis. Although I'll come back to that corner because that's not the only reason why we might withdraw or avoid in a conflict. The fifth style to notice we're calling partner. So that's where we're doing some joint problem solving together. We're collaborating, we're working out together how to find a win-win solution. When we're using partner, the issue is of high importance and the relationship is also of high importance. And it's really worth taking the time to invest in finding a creative solution. A compromise is a very pragmatic style that gives a little for each, makes sure at least some of the needs are met for each. But a partnering approach is seeking to fully meet the needs of each and may not be the most quickest or the most obvious solution, but demands a bit more of an investment to really think creatively together. Maybe using Edward de Bono's thinking hats or some other process that really helps us get creative. I want to notice a couple of other lines within this graph. So we have the issue axis and the relationship axis. But if we draw a line down from the top left to the bottom right of this graph, we have the distributive axis. So rather than being fully in compel or fully in accommodate or bang in the middle on compromise, you could actually be sliding anywhere up and down that line. Distributive meaning, how are we sharing the pie? Full compel would be all the pie for me. Compromise, split the pie in half. Accommodate, giving the whole pie away. But up and down that line, you could have portions of pie. Depending on maybe how much it matters to you or how much power you have in that situation, what your role is, what else is pressing on you. So how quickly do you need to settle? All of those things might influence where you find yourself on that line. And then here's another axis, the resource axis, going up from the bottom left corner up to the top right. The further up this way we go on the model, the more resources it's taking. So you might notice that the partner style is the hungriest style. It takes the most time, information, energy, money sometimes to bring all the resources that you need together. Skill, maybe some facilitation help. You can also see, of course, that if you used partner all the time, everybody would be exhausted. It wouldn't be appropriate if you just needed to get things resolved and move on. But this also then brings us to the final piece of the graph, which is another reason why we might find ourselves withdrawing in conflict using that style. And that's the protective space in this bottom left corner. Sometimes we use a withdraw style or an avoid style, not because the issue doesn't matter and the relationship doesn't matter, but because we don't have the resources we need to use one of the other styles. Something's missing. Maybe we don't have enough information, or maybe the length of this conflict has worn us down and we've just run out of emotional energy to face it anymore. Sometimes when someone has gone off on work-related stress, that's really what's happening. They're avoiding, they're withdrawing because their energy, their resources have been depleted by the conflict. When we come in as mediators and we're wanting to help people to move to the partner corner, and at the moment, as they describe that conflict, we're hearing them using one of the other styles. We get curious with them about what is it that that style is doing for them? What need is that meeting for them at the moment? And what would they need in order to transition from that style to the partner style, to that win-win corner? If they're using compel at the moment, maybe what they need is some reassurance that they're not being asked to compromise on a matter of principle. They're not being asked to drop on the issue. They can stay up at the same height on the issue, but simply add relationship. Or maybe they've been accommodating, but really for this conflict to be resolved. It's not about giving way. It's about hearing every voice at the table and for their ideas to be part of the creative process going forward. Maybe someone who's using accommodate needs to be reassured that them raising their own needs or naming how they see the issue is not going to damage the relationship. The relationship will be safe. They can add issue in a process that has created sufficient safety around their dynamic that they're wanting to protect. People who are using compromise often feel like, sure, I'm already doing it. I'm being pragmatic. I'm trying to find a solution here. What they might need is a bit of encouragement that there's a value in investing more time, not just splitting the difference here, but really working for a creative solution. And when someone's using a withdrawal style, and maybe all they can do at the moment is avoid, what you might do as the mediator in this situation is really sit with that person and try to understand with them what is the resource that's missing. Maybe they just need to rest and recover. So maybe they need time. And as long as that time is recuperation rather than further depleting them, then that could be a good use of time. Sometimes when people have withdrawn, actually that time off is not helping because they're still worrying about the conflict. And so we might do some more active work with them where we're helping them to build their understanding of what they're in, if that's what's missing, or helping to increase their confidence, maybe helping them do some skills work so that they feel more equipped to have this conversation. So whatever it is that's missing, that's not an exhaustive list. We need to see, is there a way of bringing that resource or helping them by signposting them to places where they can get that resource met so that they're actually able to genuinely meet the other person in this conflict in that partner space. I find this a really rich model to explore with people who are in conflict, but we need to understand our own style. That's always the place to start. So I hope you've been able to notice some of that as I've talked you through this, but also to recognise these styles as they show up for other people. We tend to have a predominant style, a home style, to do with our role or our personality or how we've been raised, what's been modelled to us in our life. We can use the other styles, but it may cost us more energy to work out of some styles that are less intuitive for us or ones in which we feel less skilled. So pay attention to that energy cost and recognise that will also be the same for others who are trying to move between these different conflict style tools. There'll also be a style that you find hardest to meet in another person. That's also worth thinking about. Which style do you find it hard to encounter when someone else is using it? And thinking about ways you might address that. So have a go exploring this style graph for yourself, thinking about live examples for you. Where are you showing up? Where are other people showing up? What's the dance between you as your style and their style interact? Or how are you seeing it playing out between colleagues or people within your group or family? Once you see it, you can't not spot it anymore.